So this session is to explore what's happening in North East and Africa, and I'm Milan and Ethan. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself with your career, proceed yourself. You're very well known in the industry, and I'm sure you can do a very good job of saying what you do now as well.
So Milan Radio, CEO of Connected Compute. I've been involved with data centers since '99 actually, so initially as an investment banker, so between '99 and '17 was involved in many of the IPOs in the sector. I remember, Pi's not here, but I remember going and shooting the rigs on data centers in this Finsbury Square data center back in 2000. So I learned my trade from Wilner, Tobin, etc. And then in '17 I went to work with David Ruberg, who was the CEO of Interaction. True genius, and spent 5 years with him. Then I went to run some of the data center businesses for Demac or Edgenex, who's now famous because he was on the podium in Trump just a couple of months ago talking about his $20 million investment into the US. And in 23 we set up a Connected Compute to really work with governments, end users, enterprises, firms, operators on optimizing and delivering projects. And we're working in several continents now. On a dozen projects ranging from hyperscale in France through to private equity strategy in Saudi Arabia.
Ethan?
My name is Hayden Al-Khadib. I'm CTO of Deloitte Account. My experience comes from building software as a software engineer. Started in multiple sectors in healthcare and rail equipment. Started GIS, moved into finance, fintech. Started with startups outside the financial technology, mobile trading, techno, and digital bank. Today I'm moving to the semi-development sector, which is a new interesting area. The camera we're focusing on digitized labor market solutions for the whole nation. This is a pleasure and honor to be with this.
And Sylvia Royce, so I'm a senior analyst at Data Center Group, which is an intelligence company from the data center sector. Prior to that, I was at the Uptime Institute for quite a long time, 12 years. And before that, I was at Interaction, that was acquired by Digital. I didn't actually see Milan very much, but we were not in the same era. And now senior analyst for Data Center, looking after mainland Europe and the Middle East, and soon to be Africa as well. So the data center sector has seen major shifts from 2024 to 2025, largely driven by AI expansion, energy challenges, and evolving infrastructure strategies. AI workloads have accelerated demand for high-density data centers, pushing operators to adopt liquid cooling, new technologies as default for new builds. Hyperscalers are prioritizing AI-ready facilities, with GPU deployments shaping site selection. For the markets in Europe, we've seen fundamental changes. The UK market is facing severe grid connectivity delays, leading some operators to look for some other power generation. And market expansion in Europe has exploded with new markets, precedingly like Tier 2 markets like Madrid, Switzerland is also expanding, Italy is exploding, and this trend is expected to continue for the short term. And the sector is also at a critical inflection point with rising costs and supply chain constraints, forcing operators to rethink strategies. And despite challenges, the data center investments are projected to its record levels with about 10 gigawatts of new capacity breaking ground globally in 2025. For the Middle East, as we have people here who actually live in the Middle East, GCC countries are strategically using their substantial oil revenues to accelerate digital transformation, energy transition, and AI infrastructure. And we've seen a number of announcements in the Middle East lately, in the last year, I would say, big announcements. So I'm going to start with Milan. Where does the money come from?
Look, there's no shortage of capital in the Middle East. I think one of the hallmarks of these countries is that the leadership understands the strategic imperative to become regional hubs. So the UAE, KSA are involved in a pretty big battle actually to establish themselves as the primary locations for AI. Now, they're characterized by plentiful funds. If you look at the sovereign funds and related investment funds, there's no shortage of capital. And in fact, some of the work we're doing with private equity funds in KSA is funds who have historically sourced their money in the Middle East, but have gone and invested elsewhere. And they're being now asked or cajoled into bringing some of that money back to the region to invest. And I think I'm hearing that from other people who probably have seen. So, that's obviously augmenting the funding at the time, and maybe the PIF is cutting back a little bit and reallocating the oil price may have something to do with that. The other side of the story is that you've got a lot of international investment coming. So, for a lot of the reasons you described, which is execution issues and obstacles in other parts of the world, you've seen an immense attraction to some of the global operators to augment their portfolios of activity with investments in the Middle East. When I was at Digital Realty, Middle East seemed a little bit too difficult. So they tried, couldn't quite get to the right JV structures. I think a couple of things have happened. One is that the local partners are perhaps a little bit more accommodating and a bit more commercial about their requirements. And on the other side of it, I think the global operators understand that without those type of partnerships, they kind of find it very difficult to secure the right kind of permits, power availability, and so on. So I think people are coming to the table in a much more proactive and user-friendly way, and that's helping to create some of these JVs. We've seen some interesting things, and there'll be many more of these types of initiatives to come. Because certainly the local funds are much more receptive. They understand, and some have tried, by the way, and some of the local funds have tried to deliver data centers, and it hasn't quite worked out in the way they didn't quite see the offtake that they anticipated. Some of that is down to operational experience, and so they're looking to close that gap in terms of ability to demonstrate credibility when it comes to operational capability. So overall, I think that there's going to be quite a lot of activity. Whether I believe that data vault will deliver 1.5 gigawatts, clearly. Why would you, right? And so, actually, what we've got is this interesting thing where, a do or someone well-resourced, state-owned, will say, hey, we're going to do 5 megawatt AI, and then data vault, who are newly funded, part of that power, will say 1.5 gigawatts, but with no real credibility, no assets behind them, and that's where I think we have to take things with a pinch of salt. So I wonder how much of your 10 gigawatts global capacity has got these chunks of Saudi over-announcements in IFF. That's another question.
I mean, that's not just for the Middle East. But yes, you're right. There's all these announcements. We don't know what is real from what is not. Do you think these projects like the 1.5 gigawatt you mentioned can go anywhere?
Yes, so remember that particular one is interesting because they have taken on NEOM. So what's happened is economies, which was out of the NEOM contract for the data centers, Oracle is one of the kind of like pretenders there. Autonomous has been wound down. Now they've been at it for a few years and all they delivered is 2 megawatts, which hasn't been made just about be live. But effectively Autonomous has been wound down and they've been replacing it. So that's where data vault comes into. Data vault to be given that mandate, but they need to find funding. Now, obviously, they're feeling a lot more positive about their outlook because they have the neon credentials to often execute against, but what will they put in place realistically? And they've said it recently, it might be 10 megawatts, 20 megawatts at most in the first couple of phases. If that gets these taken up, then they'll move beyond. So the question arises, why now 12.5 gigawatts when actually your first phase is 10?
Yeah, I believe the first phase is 300 megawatts.
That's not the data to say, yeah.
So I would like to add also as well for sources to fund infrastructure where we're funding it from. So in our experience, I'd like to talk about TIWA and what we did in the market. So TIWA basically before we came, the process to start a company, to get work permits, to get visa, everything is a manual process. You have to go through weeks, months to get your company into operational readiness. And what we did, part of the 2030 vision, was to digitize all of these services. So what we did today, we integrated with all of the public sector, all of the government entities, Ministry of Commerce, the Ministry of Interior Affairs, even the Saudi Business, it's SBC, I don't recall the name. So basically what we did is we unlocked capital. Now, before that process, the volume was low. To fix our companies, it would take forever. So once we digitize that, we monetize a lot of the services. So we have to subscribe to the platform, users, especially work permits, everything is done digitally. So what we see today is hundreds of millions of transactions. Companies immediately get into operational readiness. And that unlocks huge capital for the government. Most of that money is done all in wealth that goes back to the government to be reinvested into major projects, into AI initiatives. So some of these digitizing solutions also increases the capital that is reinvested.
And so we're talking about data centers and AI and large amounts of power. For any data center to work well, you need power and liquidity, but you also need an ecosystem. Do you think the ecosystem in, let's say, Saudi, from there, is big enough to attract people to these sizable centers in Saudi?
It comes to investments, with the US, Saudi Council, bringing the big players into that. So yes, there's a lot of interest, a lot of big initiatives, like you may just announced one of the board initiatives about AI and end-to-end solution. So I think the ecosystem is there. But when it comes to energy limitations, I think that fund can be used to invest into R&Ds, into renewable energy. So I think we should reassess the strategy and try to get there. There will always be challenges, there will always be limitations. I believe there's also a way we can do research to solve these.
Milan, you're advising a number of companies, governments. What do you think about the power grids in the Middle East? Do you think they're robust enough to take on that amount of...
Yeah, they are, but there's a shortage. So if you go to Abu Dhabi today, you're not going to get power for a few years at scale. So if you're looking for 10 megawatts and up, there's a queue. And while there are several projects underway, new generation capacity coming, it's going to take a little while. So I think there is a real misconception that you can get power immediately tomorrow. That's going to take some time, and there's quite a lot of pressure now, generation capacity. As it is, these economies are seeing quite a lot of domestic growth in power consumption, so it's taking a little while. The second piece is renewable. So renewable projects, there are sizable renewable projects, but they're taking some time to come online. Of course, you're going to get small nuclear reactor type projects as well, which is happening in the UAE, and will happen, I think, more emphatically in Saudi as well. But it's going to take a little bit of time. I think actually hyperscale is not necessarily coming because of the power. I think genuinely they're coming because of the government activity. Right? So why did they come to the UAE in such a pronounced way? Because there were quite a lot of large-scale digital transformation projects being made available for them, which then supported the cloud region deployment and so on. And of course they then transit, so dark fiber availability, internet exchanges in place, which were prerequisites. Saudi did the same. So by dangling Saudi AI out there, they can say, look, we're open for business, we're going to throw a lot of funding at this whole AI opportunity, and if you're a hyperscaler that's offering platforms for this, you would be crazy to miss out. So in come Oracle, and you see a sequence of announcements that are gradually sort of working their way across. So I think that's the driver. And by the way, it's the same way. The hyperscalers are coming in if there's a government element to it. So to the extent they don't want to necessarily be in a government data center, they do want to work under a government agreement for sovereign cloud, digital transformation, because that brings some lumpiness to the revenue opportunity.
I think that's very true. I was in Dubai not so long ago, on one of the panels I was attending, they were saying like the UAE has had the Ministry of AI for about 7 years in Dubai, and Abu Dhabi. And there is like this willingness of fostering talent for AI education as much in Saudi as in the rest of the GCC. And if you compare to Europe, it's been like, oh, it's only now that we are worried about it. So there's like we're not quite in sync in between the regions. Do you think the UAE can take advantage, or the region, the GCC can take advantage of that and go forward with AI and the rest of AI compared to Europe, who might be a little more shy about development.
I think it's a lot more fragmented. I think it's a centralized decision making that's helping the UAE case, right? I mean, decisions are very, very clear, they're very quick, and the resources are unlimited. So every month there's another AI conference, fintech, blockchain, a new set of regulations designed to attract international companies performing any kind of those type of, or in any of those type of sectors into the region. So it's that kind of wave of activity, right? And they get bigger and better every single time, right? So there's kind of a learning effect that's going on. So it becomes a natural hub. In the end, look, you've got two powerhouses within the region, and they will service the surrounding countries. So the real matter is to make sure they're attracting the right kind of talent to be the genuine regional hubs, and that's why so much investment in education is going on. So there was a fantastic conference recently called Machines Can See. One thing that struck me was the number of young people who were being put through. It was at the Museum of the Future, which in itself is extraordinary, but you had school kids, university kids, what was all being tempted to spend time, and you had professors and AWS and Google, all of the top kind of research heads and so on who have been brought together. Not many countries can achieve that today, in that kind of way, where they will not hesitate to pay for the right people to come. Sharjah will host conferences, and there'll be an amazing roster of F1 racing drivers and entrepreneurs and major CEOs. Lee in Saudi, and you've got the CEOs of all the US tech companies presenting to 150 people in the room. It's a different level of engagement, it's a different level of resource allocation. I think that comes from centralization and the genuine leadership mentality that's kind of driving this forward. And you can't see that anywhere else in the world. I believe.
I believe also Doha and Qatar, they're starting to be a big player as well in the region. And just going back to our conferences, we have the special moments for cloud computing. This is exactly what you meant, is giving tax breaks, ensuring that you have the right policies, and will be protected with that. That definitely enhances and guarantees or gives assurance to companies to come and invest in Saudi. Just going back on the patent, one of the things we are going to do is, after we digitize the labor market, we have full insights on the talents in the market. We know exactly what kind of skill sets, we need international experts to come from, what kind of skills we need to, enhance and train locally. And And we want also to do this initiative as a GCC-wide, to have a cross-border digital market where, if there's an abundance of talent in any country, they can easily and seamlessly move. And it would be great to also have joint ventures for this AI initiatives, because everyone is doing the same work separately, but there's always the concern about data residency, but there's always a solution. We can have integrated AI models, and all of this data can be used by the IFF, policy makers, so definitely will enhance.
Milan, do you see also this same thing happening in Africa? It's different, isn't it?
Africa is a bit more challenging,
Yeah.
I would say. Now, Guy was here, he'd say, no, it's easy, right? That's Africa. But look, I think the African data center industry, I think, is quite polarized. And the majority of the players are in a bit of trouble, right? So you've got some restructurings going on at the moment. You've got a lot of relatively empty data centers that have been built only in the last 5 years. I think that insufficient attention was paid to what the workloads would be, and hence what the connectivity attributes, what the latency attributes, what those facilities should be. And so you'll see for the type of tax breaks and the kind of free zone advantages, you see the clustering a lot of these facilities 40, 50 kilometers away from the main peering hubs and population centers, which I think is proven to be a bit of an error. And so you're seeing relatively lackluster take-up, which in turn is creating financial pressures on these players because they're not able to access debt without the right kind of utilization rates and recurring revenue. So investors don't typically like putting more equity in later in the project life cycle. So you're seeing a little bit of, I think, some pressure on those names. And then you see the global players. So when I was in digital, we bought Medallion. Nigeria, we bought, we see like some land in Lagos and Ghana and so on and so forth. But actually, if you look at digital realty, after Terrico is a shared initiative between private equity funds and digital realty, there hasn't been much movement, they haven't done much. Right? We put a 1 mega prefab next door to Medallion in Lagos, built the things, the minimum that what they've been carried on, but they covered the minimum they had to in Lekki and so on, but they haven't really stamped their mark on that continent. Reticence, risk aversion. An American management team sees more opportunity in restructuring and being a large-scale fund to invest in some of the bigger markets. So Equinix is the same. They bought main one, having lost out on Medallion, done a little bit here or there to Africa, and then not a lot. Right? So you've kind of got this kind of lack of activity. So we're actually building a few projects that it's government-led. So in West Africa, we're seeing the government step up and say, hey, let's build a campus. 12 megawatts of Cote d'Ivoire, 6-7 megawatts of Benin. So you'll see these kind of governments which understand and quite proactive start to put in place digital infrastructure as a starting point. Not necessarily because they think Google and Microsoft are coming in tomorrow, but because they understand the need to keep pace with, and the same thing's happening in small Eastern European markets, frankly. But that type of activity is government-led, quite proactive, and when you then have an anchor tenant that is 2-3 megawatts and let's say 40-50% of the overall project capacity, that makes it much more appealing in the funding context.
I believe not also the capacity. As in our previous ventures, we had a fintech company we're launching in Saudi Arabia and UAE, and also we're targeting Africa and Sudan. So even finding the right services for data centers took forever. Even some of these projects completely got cancelled. It's either due to lack of regulations or not finding the right services. Because we're building like platform as service, everything is cloud native. And when you go to these data centers, you have to go back 20 years and change your application to run that way.
Yeah, but land is cheap, right? So I don't know why these people have gone to these free zones anyway. You can buy 16,000 square meters in a business district very close to everything for less than $1 million or $1 million, right? I mean, a fraction of what you pay in other more developed markets. Why not go and put the data center in the right place so that you can address B2C workloads and content and so on? So I think this is interesting. And I think what's going to happen now is as the AI inferencing initiatives become bigger, some of these legacy type models and unconnected models will start to become even more exposed potentially.
So the the requirements for success in developing these centers across the continent might be different depending on the geography. In the Middle East, in Africa, not the same thing. And actually, even regionally in Africa is very different. We've seen South Africa for about 10, 15 years growing, but not hugely after a while stabilized. Now we're seeing West Africa, Central Africa coming forward. What about North Africa?
Yes, right. I mean, North Africa is, look, it's relatively well developed in terms of some of the economies. But actually, if you look at Morocco, Egypt, Egypt is way down the rankings when it comes to IP traffic and data center capacity because it's such a closed market. So I did quite a lot of work in Egypt when I was at the bank, and the regulator promised all sorts of inter-data center tariffs for connectivity. Never came. You had to basically take the capacity from Telecom Egypt. Which hyperscalers will take metered capacity from somewhere like Telecom Egypt? I mean, it's like signing a blank check, right? So even to this day, AWS, Microsoft have been knocking on the door of Egypt for years. Nothing's happened. There's a reason for that, right? Morocco, you've seen a couple of private equity investors enter Morocco. Not a huge amount going on, frankly. So I'm not convinced that the existing assets are growing in the way that they were anticipating, so that's a challenge.
It's the usual players expanding further.
Yeah, only slower than expected. Slower than expected.
Yeah.
Right? For me, it's a simple equation. Where is the growth coming from? Is it enterprise or consumer? Right? It's not enterprise. Let's face it. I don't see many African countries with an enterprise cloud pipeline that really is enough to drive these deployments. But what you are seeing is ubiquitous usage of consumer applications, video, peer-to-peer content, and so on. And AI inferencing will fall, in my view, primarily in the consumer bucket, right? Which means you need to position your data center in terms of workloads, connectivity, accordingly. I don't think that's an African or Middle Eastern thing. And that was I think these private equity firms that have put in place a huge amount of commodity wholesale capacity to address the AI training opportunity, I think they're going to regret it, right? Because they're commodity wholesale, and we saw Digital Realty selling capacity for $60 a kilowatt to Tesco for years, right? But before your time, actually, but maybe not actually. But, that's what we're going to come down to. There's such a massive amount of unoccupied capacity that's being built. If AI inferencing is coming, the one realization that people had in the last 12 months, it seems, is that these things are quite latency sensitive. Amazon CloudFront, the local zone, sub 10 milliseconds. AI inferencing is not going to be far off that kind of latency. You're not going to get that 30, 40, 50, 100 kilometers away from the theory. Right? You may have got power, you may have got renewable power, you may have got land, and you may have got permits and some tax breaks from the Atlanta government or whatever, but the Georgia state government, but it doesn't help you solve your ticket into those kind of next stage of growth for high-value workloads. That, I think it's universal. It's a universal fact.
So, Trump is in the Middle East as we speak. He's in Saudi, day one, and I think afterwards he's going to Qatar and Abu Dhabi, UAE. He's hoping to make a number of deals. How do you see it playing out?
Well, it's a great opportunity. They started in this form. They're bringing a lot of investments, producing a lot of new projects. So it's definitely a good opportunity. Just making sure we select the right projects, make sure it's aligned with our vision. So I think Sam Altman and Elon Musk, everyone's also in the country meeting with all the local CEOs. So it's definitely a great opportunity to explore.
They seem to be considering large-scale sales of advanced AI chips in Saudi and in UAE, and this is like a little bit of a shift in US technology export policy. What do you make of it all?
I think he's going to get there. I think he's it's going to get the deals. Look, UAE announced $50 billion of investment in France. And it's real because they're now working on it. Okay, so site selection, G42 and Core 42 have already put in place a plan and they found the sites and they will be hosting GPUs. Thousands of GPUs will be hosted in locations that have already been identified. I mean, with these announcements, it's sometimes difficult to disaggregate, okay, which is Core 42, which is G42, which is CASNA, which is MGX, which is now quite heavily involved in some of these initiatives. But I think they will get headline companies to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into the US. And it could be by SoftBank, could be by that Stargate Venture and so on. But there's absolutely no doubt that the sovereign fund in particular, and Abu Dhabi has got a massive appetite to expand its footprint. It has the ability to do that. So I'd be very surprised if they don't get some pretty large scale announcements about Middle Eastern commitments to invest in digital infrastructure in the US.
Well, they already do. Some
With MJX, so I think you get more, absolutely. And
it's really,
yeah, and the Qataris are going to do the same because it's their way of actually getting exposure to a segment they want exposure to anyway. So G42, Core 42 are looking to globalize anyway. This gives them a nice pass into the US market, so it's a no-brainer in that respect.
I think that for me, I'm French, so the nice part about the AI summit was that it was not just about the US investments or the US coming to Europe, but also about the Middle East coming to Europe and France in particular. I think mainly to do with nuclear energy, or do you think something else as well?
No, I think it's going to be around AI hubs. So they'll be hosting AI, because remember France benefits from Marseille, which is one of the subsea cables, and Macron has been pushing very, very hard for that whole region to open up a little bit. So some of the socialist governments are now much more amenable. They've had to take a backseat along the way, but much more amenable to investment. So that region is firmly open, and it's a highly connected region, which then through Equiano to Africa, there's some new cables coming. Well, 16 cables now, pretty much.
There's a lot more
potentially coming. So, I mean, that's becoming epicenter. Every time people try and bypass it. So in the meantime, STC is extending the to Africa cable or pearls into the other GCC countries, so Kuwait, Bahrain will now jump onto that cable. Where does that go? It goes to Marseille, and it goes the other side, goes on around Africa into Pakistan. So that subsea cable element, I think, is critical.
The latency, whether it's for training or it's for is going to be key.
It's going to be key.
Okay. I think we're arriving to the end of this panel, but I wanted to ask you if you had any questions, and if you wanted to know some details about these two regions. Mr. Shamayi, maybe?
I'm a true believer of Middle East and Africa. For having lived in this part of the world for 15 years, I'm very happy to see what the governments are putting in place there. I think it's long due time for that business to flourish into these two regions. Into Africa, I would maybe not have a question about a comment, because the answer is already known. Is there an opportunity for growth in Africa? Yes. When is a big question. But the reality is, I fully agree with what you just depicted, Milan, on. I think there is an obsession, and we're missing the point when addressing Africa. What you just said about what should be available at the proximity, where you're going to be having the typical CDN kind of business, and then the cash content that you can have as near as is going to be a crucial element to the tomorrow's inference there. And demography is what is actually driving the consumer and the essence of it. So I fully agree with that. I kind of have that dream that there is maybe one place in Africa where we could be investing, which is Ghana, because of the proximity of the big neighbor and the demography. And it seems not to be addressed by so many, and I don't know why still, but yeah.
We kind of missed out on it to Africa as well, right? We missed a big one. We are a big missed out.
Yeah.
quite a small landing to Africa as well. The bit I think that people are missing is this connectivity and proximity and localizing the content. Meta today are paring back the quality of resolution on Instagram Reels because they don't have the bandwidth to allow people to watch it at full resolution. Right? So they're bringing forward billions of dollars of investment. And you'll remember after they get to Africa, the team are like never again. And they just announced another big one, even bigger than and this time they're doing it alone. They're not allowing 7 other telcos to piggyback on their hard work, right? My final point on this would be, imagine a kid creating an animation for 45 seconds using an AI platform, right? And he's not going to do it once or 10 times, he's probably going to do it 30 times till he's happy with it. And he's shuttling that content to and fro 30 times for a useless piece of gimmick content. Right? Imagine a classroom imagine a whole country of school kids who've got access to AI tools doing that, and that's a massive burden. Right? No hyperscalers to pay for that content to be shuttled between the compute platform. And so those compute platforms are going to have to be deployed locally. And I think that's the big shift that's happening in Ghana. It's all about deployment locally because they're making it smaller and smaller. You can actually put some of the smaller training models on locally. Obviously, Middle East is paying quite a lot of money to have some of that Arabic LLM stuff deployed in country as well. So it's a lot to go for China.
Do you think, because we've got Mr. Schneider in the room, do you think we're going to see data centers getting bigger and bigger, or do you think it's going to stabilize after some time?
I'm spending a lot of time, to be honest, in trying to align the planets between the community of the data centers and the TSO, the transmission and distribution guys, because at the end of the day, it's very difficult, to build big or to build without access to power. I'm not sure that, yes, to whatever you will see doing on the training models of this, AI partner, you need to have a warehouse full of GPUs that are providing to train that model. When the model gets super small and gets deferred to the inference model, we go back to the discussion that we're having. You don't especially need to have big data centers. However, you don't have to blur yourself either. One of the biggest challenges of Northern Africa is what Milan just depicted on the proximity of Marseille. Because today, if you're in the Nordics and you want to do an inference model, it takes you less than 15 milliseconds to reach out to heart of Paris. So I don't think that the size of those data centers is going to be paramount. I truly believe that depending on what model you will deploy, how you read demography, and in Africa, it's 100% consumer, not 100%, largely consumer. Then the name of the game is not in having the bigger data center, it's in having the ability to deploy as close as you can, that content that is being used at the moment.
Thank you for that. Okay, well, thank you very much for attending our session. I hope it was good for you. And see you next time.
Thank you.